No problem, no problem. Okay, so we will continue.
Yeah, sure.
I think you can see now, right? PPT.
Yes, I can see it now.
Okay, okay. So capacity. Okay, so which question can you tell me? Like, oh, this question, oh, capacitation.
Yeah, from the capacitation, I lost the connection. I was trying to reconnect it.
Okay, fine then. Okay, I
Yeah.
will continue from there.
Yeah.
Okay, so all are true about capacitation except changes that occur in sperm to penetrate over. So what is capacitation? Capacitation, the definition is number A. Definition is number A. That is the changes. The capacitation is the process of changes in the sperm to in order to make it able, in order to make it capable of penetrating the ova. So that is only capacitation. So the answer, this is the definition. So obviously this is true. Then it occurs in female genital tract. This is also true, but not in male genital tract. This is false. It occurs in this capacitation, this process occurs in female genital tract. Sperm loses its cholesterol content in the process. This is the mechanism of capacitation actually. This is the mechanism of capacitation. What happens is the what happens is that the spermatozoa, matured spermatozoa from the Sertoli cell. Sertoli cells are the lining of the seminiferous tubules. Lining of the seminiferous tubules. So the spermatozoa, mature spermatozoa will be present, will come from Sertoli cells in the lumen of the seminiferous tubule, and they will be exposed, spermatozoa will be exposed to vesicles containing cholesterol, and the main function of this vesicle cholesterol will be is that they protect the sperm head. They protect the sperm head from breaking down. So they protect the sperm head from breaking down until the spermatozoas are ejaculated into vagina. When they reach the vagina, this vesicular cholesterol get lost in the uterus, and the spermatozoa rises upward to the uterus, and in the process they loses the cholesterol, they loses the vesicular cholesterol. So when there is no vesicular cholesterol present, then the spermatozoa sperm head will cannot be protected, and that is why what happens, this sperm head thinner becomes thinner and can penetrate into the ova. So this loss of cholesterol content while the sperm propagates towards ova in the female reproductive tract, this mechanism, this process is what is known as capacitation actually. Because if the cholesterol is present, the sperm cannot penetrate into ova. As sperm reaches the female genital tract, the process of cholesterol or the loss of cholesterol starts, and losses of cholesterol lost leads to sperm head thinning. Sperm head thinning, and this is only makes the sperm to penetrate uh, to able to enter or capable to enter the ova. It makes the sperm capable to enter the ova. That is only called as capacitation. Okay, so this is about this question. So answer is all the true about capacitation except occurs in male genital tract. It it occurs, the process of capacitation starts in female genital tract and not male genital tract. Anyway, next question is defect in leptin leads to obesity, anorectic, both and none. Obesity. Defect in leptin leads to obesity. Because leptin abnormality or defective leptin leads to irresistible eating tendency leading to obesity. Next is GLUT receptor on pancreas, GLUT1, 2, 4, 5. GLUT1 is present in placenta, BBB, brain, red cell, kidneys, colon. GLUT2 is present in beta cells, islet. Beta cells, islet, as we have studied beta cells. The islet of Langerhans is this. Here GLUT2 is present in the beta cell islet. Here GLUT2 is present. Okay. So GLUT2 receptor, which GLUT is present in pancreas? GLUT2. Next is GLUT3. GLUT3 is present in placenta, kidneys, many other organs, brains. GLUT4 is also present in skeletal and cardiac muscle. Skeletal and cardiac muscle, GLUT4. And GLUT5, jejunum and sperm, GLUT5. GLUT6, brain, spleen and leukocyte, and GLUT7, liver. Okay. So next question is insulin increases glucose uptake in small intestine, skeletal muscle, RBC, kidney. It is insulin increases glucose uptake in skeletal muscle. Now see what happens when glucose is present in the blood. Insulin comes and insulin helps to triggers the expression of GLUT4 receptor in the membrane of skeletal muscles. In the membrane of skeletal muscles, and glucose is reuptake is taken into the skeletal muscle in order to provide energy through GLUT4. That's why, as we just studied, GLUT4 is present in skeletal and cardiac muscle. So GLUT4 is present in skeletal muscle as well. Okay. So insulin increases glucose uptake in skeletal muscle. Now next question, diagnosis of ovulation can be done by all except. Diagnosis of ovulation is done by all except study of cervical mucus. Okay, so study of cervical mucus, rise in basal body temperature in the second half of the cycle, endometrial histology, measuring serum progesterone on 14th day of the menstrual cycle. So diagnosis of ovulation can be done by all except. So first of all, we will see study of cervical mucus is possible or not. So by which method diagnosis of ovulation can be done? First of all, study of cervical mucus, it's possible, right? So cervical, actually diagnosis of ovulation can be done by study of cervical mucus, rise in basal body temperature, that is BBT method, we call it BBT method, endometrial histology, obviously that will be the best, endometrial histology, measuring serum progesterone 14th day of the cycle, this is not. Okay, so this is the answer. This is the answer, but we need to know how these are other three options are possible. Cervical mucus, estrogen makes the mucus thinner. So what happens is that you need to remember that estrogen makes mucus thinner and progesterone makes it thick. Thick, tenacious, okay? Tenacious, thick mucus is produced by progesterone, while thinner mucus is produced by estrogen. Thinner alkaline mucus is produced by estrogen. So at the time of ovulation, what happens? There will be increase of estrogen. When there will be ovulation, there will be estrogen. estrogen, and the mucus will be thinner mucus. So if the mucus is thin, if the mucus is thin, then ovulation has taken place. It shows ovulation has taken place. Another very important thing, although we will study all these things about all these things in gynecology, then also we need to know that another important thing is fern-like pattern occurs when this thin layer is spread on table. This thinner mucus, if it is spread on a table, then fern-like pattern occurs. And both thin mucus and fern-like pattern both suggest that ovulation has taken place. Ovulation has taken place. Both of these feature suggest. Okay, and if pregnancy occurs after ovulation, then this thin mucus and obviously fern-like pattern disappears in pregnancy. Only in ovulation. Okay. Next is rise in BBT, basal body temperature. There will be surge in LH secretion during the 14th day, and convenient and reasonably reliable indicator of of the time of ovulation is rise in BBT. Rise in BBT. This is another very good diagnostic method of ovulation. Ovulation is BBT 1 to 2 days after ovulation, but it will occur 1 to 2 days after ovulation, and maximum of, always remember, maximum of 0.5 degrees Celsius will be increased. And in the second half, so 1 to 2 days after ovulation, that means second half of the cycle starts already. So in the second half of the cycle starts, there will be increase of temperature, basal body temperature, not after running and walking, but BBT at rest, temperature at rest, there will be increase of 0.5, but 0.5 degrees is the maximum 0.5 degrees. It should not increase up to 1 degree Celsius. It should not increase up to 1 degree Celsius. Okay. So the answer will be next is endometrial histology. Endometrial histology. What happens at the end of menstruation? New endometrium regrows under the influence of estrogen. So during the 14th day, the endometrium increases rapidly in thickness from the 5th day of the menstrual cycle to the 14th day of the menstrual cycle. So as the thickness of the endometrium increases during this proliferative stage, right? Proliferative stage, uterine glands are drawn out so that they length, but they do not become convoluted or secret to any degree. So what happens? You can see endometrial histology. You can see the uterine glands. Uterine glands are straight. They are not convoluted. Rather, they are very straight. They are very straight because they are because there will be thickness of endometrium. At the 14th day, there will be thickness of endometrium. So these endometrial changes are called proliferative, right? That is why we call it proliferative phase. And this part of menstrual cycle is sometimes called proliferative phase, also called pre-ovulatory also. Anyway, after ovulation, what happens? Endometrium becomes vascularized. Edematous under the influence of estrogen and progesterone from corpus luteum. Progesterone also increases after ovulation. Another thing is that glands become coiled and tortuous from straight from this straight gland, it will become coiled and tortuous. Okay. So these are the changes that occur pre and post ovulation. So the answer will be measuring serum progesterone on 14th day of the cycle. By measuring serum progesterone on 14th day of the cycle, we cannot diagnose ovulation. In fact, after ovulation, it will take few hours to 1 days to for the level of progesterone to increase. And progesterone increases after ovulation from CL or corpus luteum. Okay, next question. Release of which one of the following hormones is an example of neuroendocrine secretion? Release of which of the following hormone is an example of neuroendocrine secretion? Okay, so options are growth hormone, cortisol, oxytocin, thyroxine. So the answer will be oxytocin. Answer will be oxytocin. Release of which one of the following hormones is an example of neuroendocrine secretion? Okay, so the oxytocin and vasopressin are typical neural hormones. Why neural hormones? Because they are secreted into the circulation by nerve cells. What are the two hormones? Oxytocin and vasopressin. So this oxytocin is secreted from nerve ending of the supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei of the hypothalamus. So oxytocin is secreted from supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei of hypothalamus. This oxytocin is secreted from nerve endings of supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei. These endings are located in posterior pituitary. Now next, all hormones peak at term except estradiol, progesterone, PRL, HCG. Answer will be estradiol, no. Progesterone, no. PRL, HCG. HCG will be the answer. HCG at term means when the baby is about to be delivered, that times estradiol will increase, or we should say it is at the peak level. Estradiol is at the peak level during the term. Progesterone also term. Again, prolactin also term. But HCG during the first trimester. HCG during the first trimester. Another hormone that is at the peak level during the first trimester is relaxin. So at term, two hormones. One is relaxin, another is HCG, is at peak level. All hormones are at first trimester. Relaxin and HCG will be at the peak level, and other hormones at term it will be at peak level. Estradiol, progesterone, prolactin will be at peak level during term, but relaxin and HCG will be at peak level during first trimester. during first trimester. Okay. Okay. Next, spin bucket. Spin bucket means we know that spin bucket test is there. It's actually nothing but it's these are cervical mucus. These are cervical mucus. This mucus, thinner mucus by estrogen. These are only cervical mucus. These are thinnest at the time of ovulation that we just studied, and its elasticity. If this thin mucus, if during the ovulation increases, estrogen is increased and thin mucus becomes thinner. If this mucus is taken between two fingers, we can see that those mucus can be stretched, can be stretched like these two fingers. Okay, these two fingers, this mucus will be stretched, like thin stretch will occur. This stretching, this pattern is called spin bucket. Is called spin bucket. This is another test of ovulation. And after ovulation, it becomes thin, and so this fern-like pattern or spin bucket test cannot be observed. Okay, so basically spin bucket is cervical mucus, and this is HCG. Okay. Okay, next. Okay, next we will go to some respiratory physiology. Mean pulmonary artery pressure is 16 mmHg. 16 mmHg. Pulmonary artery systolic pressure averages about 24 mmHg and diastolic 8 mmHg. So systolic is 24 and diastolic is 18. 8, and the mean arterial pressure MAP is 16. Okay, PO2, partial pressure of oxygen, PO2 pressure at sea level is 160. This is just a fact, so I'm just going through, is 160. Next, which is the correct regarding lungs in an upright posture? VYQ means VYQ ratio is at high. VYQ ratio, that is ventilation perfusion ratio, is high at the apex. So this is lungs. This is lungs. So apex VYQ is high. VYQ is low at the apex, and VYQ is equal and none of the above. So the answer will be, in upright position, VYQ will be high at the apex of lung. This ratio of pulmonary ventilation to pulmonary blood flow for the whole lung at rest is about this ratio, V/Q ratio. The value of the ratio is 0.8. Okay, 0.8. And this V/Q ratio are always are high in the upper portion of the lung, that is the at the apex, highest at the apex. And in upright position, V is high and Q is low. ventilation will be high and the Q is low at the apex of apex of the lung. So if V is high at the apex, V is high and Q is low. So the highest value of this ratio will be at the apex because numerator is more and denominator is least. So the ratio will be biggest at the concerned site, and the concerned site is apex. Okay, so this is number A. Production of surfactant is pneumocyte type 2. Okay, pneumocyte type 2. Surfactant is what? Surfactant is what? Surfactant, they is, first of all, surfactant, they retain the surface tension of the alveoli. Okay, they retain the surface tension. Surfactant, pulmonary surfactant, we are talking about pulmonary surfactant, obviously. Pulmonary surfactant retain the retention of surface tension, or ST, surface tension of alveoli. So alveoli remain inflated like this, do not get deflate. Okay, those are products. So surfactant are produced by type 2 pneumocyte. Type 2 pneumocyte. Next question, bronchial secretion contain. Bronchial secretion contain IgG, IgM, IgA, IgA. Now very common, generally speaking, any secretion contains, if contain immunoglobulin, no question asked, it will be type A. It will be type A because only IgA has secretory IgA type, SIgA we call it. Other immunoglobulins have no subtype of secretory subtype. Okay, so any secretion, whether it is bronchial secretion, whether it is tears, whether it is intestinal secretion, if any secretion contains immunoglobulin, it will be IgA, and IgG is complement activation. IgM helps in IgG and IgM both helps in complement activation. Their function is complement activation. And IgE is releases histamine from basophils and mast cells. That's why IgE is very much involved in hypersensitivity reaction, acute hypersensitivity reaction, then asthma, then allergy. Okay, so histamine mediated reaction. IgE is associated with histamine mediated reaction. So anyway, the answer will be IgA. Peripheral chemoreceptors are stimulated by carbon dioxide, hydrogen ions, pH, and oxygen. And the answer will be oxygen. Okay, so first of all, carbon dioxide or hydrogen ion, they act directly on the respiratory center. Oxygen, in contrast, does not have significant direct effect. On the respiratory center of the brain in controlling respiration. So carbon dioxide and hydrogen, they act on respiratory centers directly central respiratory central respiratory center. It's called central respiratory centers. But oxygen peripheral. Oxygen peripheral respiratory centers. That is carotid and aortic body. Oxygen acts on aortic and carotid bodies. Okay, so this is about oxygen. Okay, so the answer will be oxygen. The main danger during deep sea diving is due to. Now we will go one by one. Oxygen and nitrogen. That is the answer. That is the answer because you know what are the. We will see the potential problems that are related to deep sea diving. First of all, when we go for when anybody go for deep sea diving, there is in general the problem is exposure to increased barometric pressure. Increased barometric pressure. Okay, so the oxygen and nitrogen, what occurs is that oxygen increases mediates lung damage and convulsion. Oxygen occurs, excess of oxygen occurs, what happens? Lung damage and convulsion. Lung damage plus convulsion. And nitrogen, euphoria, impaired performance. Euphoria and impaired performance. Okay, and another thing is that if nervous syndrome, high pressure nervous syndrome can occur from deep sea diving, characterized by tremors and somnolence. Another thing, decompression sickness occurs, pain, paralysis, and air embolism can occur, sudden death. Sudden death. So these are the problems associated. So what are the problems associated from deep sea diving? Deep sea diving, always remember, deep sea diving increase barometric pressure. Increase barometric pressure, and there will be oxygen toxicity leading to lung damage and convulsion. Nitrogen narcosis, euphoria and impaired performance. High pressure nervous syndrome, tremors and somnolence, decompression sickness, very important. This is also important. Pain plus paralysis. This is also important MCQ. Decompression syndrome is characterized by during deep sea diving, and air embolism. So sudden death, the MCQ can come or already has come like this. Sudden death during deep sea diving can occur due to O2 toxicity, N2 narcosis, nervous syndrome, decompression syndrome, sickness, air embolism. Answer will be air embolism. The only option, the only etiology or only cause behind which can lead to sudden death during deep sea diving. Okay, that is air embolism. Okay. So answer will be number A. At high altitude, acclimatization happens due to increased hemoglobin content and RBC, increased reticulocyte index, decreased pulmonary ventilation, decreased ability of tissues to use oxygen. So the answer will be increased hemoglobin content and RBC. So acclimatization, what is that? Adaptation to new temperature and altitude so that hypoxia causes laser effect to the body. Hypoxia causes laser damage to the body. Okay, that is acclimatization. So acclimatization actually increases hemoglobin content in RBC. So acclimatization is characterized, always remember, acclimatization is characterized by increased pulmonary ventilation. Increased pulmonary ventilation, RBC increases, RBC number, okay, RBC number increases, increased diffusion capacity of the lung, diffusion capacity of the lung, increased vascularity of the peripheral tissues, increased vascularity of the peripheral tissues, and increased ability of the tissue cells to use oxygen, increased ability to use oxygen despite low partial pressure of oxygen. So acclimatization is done when climbing a mountain, and slowly the climbers climb the mountain to acclimatized. And during the process of acclimatization, what are the physiological changes that occurs? Increase of pulmonary ventilation, RBC number, diffusion capacity of the lungs, vascularity of the peripheral tissues, and ability of the tissue cells to use oxygen in spite of the presence of low partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, so this is increased hemoglobin content and RBC, not other options. Correct. Okay. Okay. True about hypoxia. True about hypoxia is due to inadequate gas exchange. So what are the type of hypoxia present? Anemic hypoxia due to reduced oxygen carrying capacity. Then hypoxia due to inadequate gas exchange. Then histotoxic hypoxia, inability of cells to utilize available oxygen. Stagnant hypoxia due to slow circulation. Okay, so the correct answer will be due to inadequate gas exchange. If oxygen carrying capacity decreases, that is anemic. That means RBC actually decreases, or either RBC number decreases or hemoglobin decreases. Another thing is carbon monoxide poisoning. What happened is that in carbon monoxide, as we know, carbon monoxide has more affinity to bind with hemoglobin, more affinity than oxygen. So if oxygen and carbon monoxide get exposed to hemoglobin, who will bind more? Carbon monoxide will bind more, and thus oxygen will be less binding, will less bind to the hemoglobin and cannot be transported to the tissues. Thus oxygen carrying capacity will be compromised. But oxygen is present, but carbon monoxide is also present. If carbon monoxide is also present, then there will be, functionally there will be anemic hypoxia. Functionally, that means oxygen is present, but then also as carbon monoxide is present, there will be anemic hypoxia. Now histotoxic, like cyanide poisoning, the cells become unable, the cells lost the ability to utilize available oxygen. That is histotoxic. And stagnant hypoxia due to slow circulation. Stagnant hypoxia. Oxygen dissociation curve shift to left except decrease CO2 alkalosis, increase concentration of 2,3 DPG and hypothermia. So number C will be the answer, increase concentration of 2,3 DPG. What is oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve? It shows you the saturation of oxygen of hemoglobin with partial pressure of oxygen. So if it goes left, that means increase affinity for oxygen. That means if the graph is like this, that means what? With less, this you see, with less oxygen partial pressure of oxygen, the saturation of oxygen saturation of hemoglobin can increase. That means with low oxygen availability, hemoglobin can avail oxygen, or can avail oxygen in sufficient amount. Okay, that means affinity is more. And if the opposite things happens, that oxygen partial pressure is more, but saturation of oxygen saturation in the hemoglobin is not increasing, that means binding capacity has decreased or affinity has decreased or right shift occurs. Okay, questions do come from this graph. They will give this image and they will ask several questions, especially this type of questions, like oxygen dissociation curve shifts to left except increased concentration of 2,3 DPG, because increased concentration of 2,3 DPG will cause right shift, not left shift. Decrease PCO2, if PCO2 means partial pressure of carbon dioxide decreases, then affinity for oxygen will increase. If pH concentration decreases, that means alkaline. Blood is alkaline in nature. Alkaline in nature, that means O2 affinity will O2 binding affinity will increase. Hypothermia, temperature decrease. In hypothermia, oxygen affinity towards hemoglobin will increase. In alkaline blood, O2 affinity for O2 will increase. In carbon dioxide, partial pressure when decreases, if carbon dioxide decreases, then oxygen affinity of oxygen for binding to hemoglobin will increase. So increased affinity for oxygen occurs in decreased concentration of decreased partial pressure of carbon dioxide. In alkaline blood, H plus decreasing means pH increasing. That means alkaline blood, decrease of 2,3 DPG and decrease of hypothermia. And in fetal hemoglobin has more affinity towards oxygen, as compared to HbA, that means adult hemoglobin, because fetus have in fetus the hemoglobin, the life expectancy of hemoglobin is very less, and that is why there is there can be shortage of supply of oxygen. That's why with less partial pressure of oxygen tends to bind to hemoglobin more easily. In that way only this physiology is made. Okay, so this is the left shift and right shift. Very important question for FMGE. In JVP, C wave denotes. Very important. Going straight to the answer. In JVP means jugular venous pulse. Sorry, jugular venous pressure. Jugular veins pressure of jugular vein. So the graph is like this. This is A during atrial systole. This graph will increase. Graph will increase. That means pressure in the jugular vein will increase. Then when atrial will be diastoling, relaxing, the pressure will come down. Then at C, contraction of right ventricular contraction is C. Then V, maximum atrial filling pressure occurs before ventricular diastole. Okay, so systole increasing, diastole decreasing. This is about atrium. This is about atrial. Next starts the ventricular. Next starts the ventricular. Systole contraction, but in ventricular pressure, ventricular systole, the pressure will come down. And in diastole, in both systole, first it will come down, then it will increase. And in diastole, as usual, it will decrease. So these cones, this peak, this corner will be denoted as ACXBY, and these are the pressure. Pressure is increasing, decreasing, increasing. In the diastole, you see atrial diastole, it first decreases, then increases also. And in ventricular systole, it first decreases and then again increases. And in diastole, ventricular diastole, it decreases. So you need to, the most important points for FMG from jugular venous pressure graph is the denotation. This meaning of A, C, X, V, Y. Okay, that you need to remember. Tricuspid valve closes at C. Tricuspid opens at V. Okay, so this type of question comes from this question, from this topic, JVP graph. So we have I have this summarized, like raised JVP occurs in bradycardia, fluid overload, heart failure. Okay, so we'll give the PPT and you can check, go through these conditions, in which conditions like A wave, if it is very much large, increase atrial contraction pressure, then it occurs in which conditions it occurs? Tricuspid stenosis, right heart failure, pulmonary hypertension. If there is right heart failure, if there is pulmonary hypertension, you know, it will be very difficult for the heart to pump the right atrium. That's why it will give a very big pressure, and so the A wave will be more. In the jugular venous, pressure will also increase during atrial systole. Okay. Okay, so these are the conditions according to the patterned wave, like Canon A wave occurs in atrial flutter, premature atrial rhythm, okay, ventricular tachycardia. So very important, actually, very important. These conditions are for FMG. Okay. Okay. Next question: which one of the following is true statement? Going straight to the answer, serotonin increases pain, GABA is excitatory. Just check one by one. Serotonin increases pain. False. Serotonin is involved in inhibition of pain pathology. Inhibition of pain pathology. Next is GABA is excitatory. GABA is inhibitory, not excitatory. Glutamate is inhibitory. Again false. Glutamate is excitatory. Glycine appears from synapses of the spinal cord. Glycine This glycine appears from synapses in the spinal cord. So it source, you see the source of glycine, it produces from synapse in spinal cord, and its action is also inhibitory. So excitatory is glutamate, and GABA is inhibitory and is produced from nerve terminals in the spinal cord. And glycine, synapses in the spinal cord. Which one of the following is responsible for responding to both to sustained pressure and touch? Merkel cells, Ruffini corpuscle, Pacinian, and Meissner corpuscles. So Merkel cells are responsible for responding to sustained pressure and touch, both to sustained pressure and touch. Ruffini only responsible for sustained pressure and not touch. Pacinian to deep pressure and fast vibration. Meissner to changes in texture and slow vibration. So fast vibration is Pacinian, slow vibration is Meissner. Cross end bulb sense cold temperature. Cross end bulb, cold temperature. Okay. So go through these corpuscles, and these are the receptors. So another thing need to mention is that these receptors can be classified into rapidly adapting phasic and slow adapting called tonic. So Meissner and Pacinian are examples of rapidly adapting receptors. That is phasic. And Merkel and Ruffini are slow adapting receptors. That is tonic. Other example of slow adapting receptors are muscle spindles and nociceptors, pain receptors. These are pain receptors. Nociception. Okay. Next question, lowest level of integration of stretch reflex is at cerebral cortex, medulla, lower medulla, spinal cord. So when a skeletal muscle with an intact nerve is stretched, it contracts. The response is known as stretch reflex. Now this stimulus, this stretching stimulus initiates the reflex. And the response is contraction of the muscles being stretched. So the sense organ which is encapsulated spindle-like or fusiform shaped structure are called muscle spindle located within this part of muscles. They come into play. They are called muscle spindles. They originate impulse which transmit to CNS by first sensory fibers directly to the motor neurons which supply the same muscle. And neurotransmitter at the central synapse is glutamate. As we know, glutamate is excitatory, right? Excitatory. So glutamate and the stretch reflex is best known and studied monosynaptic reflex and is typified by knee, for example, is knee jerk reflex. So lowest level of integration of stretch reflex is at spinal cord. Okay, so that's end of physiology discussion. We will give some extra MCQs for your practice and for evaluation. You can just go through the MCQs or you can just practice. We will send the answer also. And this PPT, I will give you this PPT also. And just after the class will end, the recorded class is under record. It will be sent to you in Skype only. Okay, so you can revise if you need, if you wish to, you can revise again. So the next class will be on, like, I will talk about that in WhatsApp in Friday or like that. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you, doctor. But hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Doctor. I just wanted
Yeah,
to ask the next class. I hope it will be only 2 hours, right?
yeah, it will be 2 hours. Today it has gone beyond 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Just wanted
Too
to
much
ask
question.
because I was not sure about the timing, so I thought let me confirm again.
Okay, okay. No, no, it will be 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then also I'm telling you, if you have any problem, you message me on WhatsApp that I cannot be available or something like that. If
Yeah.
like you are unavailable or you have problem, you can tell. If you have no problem, we will send you the recordings. We will do
Yeah,
the
sure.
class. I will just send the recording. It will be similar only. So we do
Okay, sure.
with some students also.
Okay.
If they have some problems, we send the recordings of that class.
Okay, sure.
Okay,
Sure.
so no
Okay.
problem. Just contact me in the WhatsApp whenever
Yeah.
you require changes. Okay.
Yeah, sure, sure. Doc.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you
So
so much.
on Friday, then again we will have class.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.